Welcome to the Overrated Experience Sports Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Blondin. Welcome once again to the podcast that provides you everything you need to know, everything I want to say in regards to sports betting, sports in general, the top news, sports stories, gambling updates, everything sports gambling you may hear on the show. And it's not going to be any different this show. You got a lot to cover. Like I said, I'm your host, Kyle Blondin. By the way, I'm thinking as I say I'm Kyle Blondin, I think this has got to be like Top Gun, where you're a fighter pilot and you got to have a nickname. And I think every podcaster should have a nickname. So you may hear it switch up. You may hear a nickname thrown in. Usually it's not the guy who is referred to as who gives himself a nickname, and that's what I may need to do. So I'm going to test it out. I'm going to go with a nickname. Just haven't landed on it yet. And for you listeners out there that have been supporting from the beginning, if you got any suggestions on a nickname that I need to run with as a sports gambler, please send your opinions at our Twitter account, Overrated Experience. It can be found at Overrated Experience 2. Oh, man, I got that wrong. Overrated EXPER 2 Twitter. So if you can find us there, support the show, chat with us, send your picks, send your thoughts, send some bad beats, whatever you got to do. And you know what? Send your suggestions on some handles I should go by when doing the podcast. Because we have some of our guests we've had previously. Johnny Charts has a nickname. Austin from Ajax has a nickname. And H. Dilla has his nickname. But good old Kyle does not have a nickname. So I'm open to find one and let it stick and let it ride as we grow this. And special shout out to our support out there in Yakima, Washington, the West Coast. Our West Coast, Northwest U.S. Thanks for continuously tuning in. Also, some picked up viewers from Victoria, BC, British Columbia. We also welcome you. I hope you're coming back this week as well as we kick off the February 2nd edition of the Overrated Experience. And what we're going to do is, we're going to obviously talk Super Bowl heading into not this weekend, but the following weekend. We got that gap, the 2-week gap, where all we got for football is the Pro Bowl, which I could care less to talk about. But Super Bowl 57, we'll get into it later. But it's I look at it as like another holiday, Christmas. Got to book that day off to make sure that you can enjoy the evening for Super Bowl. And, hope you guys are doing the same thing. Love to hear what your plan is. Again, shout out on Twitter. But we're going to get into it. Here we go. So, as far as news, notes on the gaming front, welcome Massachusetts. And you got to be careful how you say that, because it can, you can really get messed up with the state of Massachusetts. Some home of the Boston Red Sox, the Boston Bruins, the New England Patriots have legalized sports gambling effective January 31st, I believe at 10 a.m. Some casinos I know Johnny Damon was in attendance making a bet, and a few other, Sean Thornton, former Bruin, and some other former Boston athletes, one of the first to make some bets. Now, what's unique right now is that the legalized sports gaming available in Massachusetts, oh man, I got to watch how I say that, is available in-person betting only. So you have to attend one of the, casinos in the Massachusetts area to go onto their kiosk and place the bet. Online mobile betting is expected to be available effective in March 2023, which is the more convenient and better way. So, hey, but they got to start in Massachusetts, and good luck to you. Welcome aboard, and we know you're going to have some fun with it, especially as the Super Bowl approaches. What's interesting about the addition of Massachusetts is some of the restrictions that each state or province does put around that may be different from state to state, and maybe the experience that you might be having personally when placing a bet. So one of the things that sticks out to me is, for example, in Massachusetts, is that the restriction on local college or university team betting. So, for example, let's say Boston College is playing BU and a regular season NCAA basketball game, that would be off the board, would be restricted. However, if there is a tournament where these local college teams are participating, that are more than 4 teams, such as, let's say, March Madness, then the community will be allowed to bet on those teams within the tournament, which I thought was an interesting note. Also, sports where there's judgment as far as the core reason for determining who's which side wins is also off the table. So if you have, let's say, winter sports, let's say figure skating, where it's purely judging, that looks to be not available for those folks in Boston and Boston, Massachusetts. No dice there. Can't use your credit card, which is definitely contrast to many states. And I know for the province here of Ontario, you can use the credit card. So a few differences, but it's go time in Massachusetts. So welcome aboard. Other news in sports, non-gambling related, but obviously football connects to all gambling, is our boy, the GOAT, Tom Brady, went on Instagram to announce that he was done. He was done. It's in, he sounded like he was permanent. We went through this story last year where it was a grander kind of announcement, a huge essay on, his time in the NFL. And, a week later, he's back with the Buccaneers playing. Sounded like this was pretty real. This should mean at some point he joins the Fox team in the commentary role. I don't know if that's going to happen even, this Super Bowl, where maybe he'll be a participant in some way, somehow, and, start broadcasting. And obviously not the game, because Greg Olson's going to be there, and he's pretty damn good himself as far as analyst on the Fox coverage. But Tom Brady, you would think, be in the mix for the Super Bowl coverage this year. But we'll find out what happens there. I wonder if there is a wrinkle somewhere where, a lot of people are not convinced he's retired. I'm convinced he is retired. But who's to say if a team like the 49ers, week 9 call because they're in a quarterback situation, would he consider it? Does he have a clause in his Fox contract where he could get out if that offer does exist? We're going to find out. Would not be 100% surprised. I'd be 80% surprised, because I figure that it's on the retirement for good storyline that he's going with. Sean Payton, highly coveted coach for the former New Orleans Saints head coach, has indeed joined the Denver Broncos. He is the new head coach, and not for free. I mean, the New Orleans Saints had Sean Payton under contract until 2024. So the negotiation between the Saints and the Broncos did take place. They set up a trade. Saints receive a Bronco first-round pick in 2023 and the 2024 second-round pick, while the Saints obviously give up Peyton and a third-round pick, I think, next year. I can't recall if it's this year or next year, back to the Broncos. The Broncos have kind of going down that Rams pathway where they're sacrificing the immediate future, depleting their draft board significantly in hopes that the coach will make a huge difference. In this case, I don't think the Broncos had a choice. Russell Wilson, they already were all in on Russell Wilson. He had a flop of a year. The coaching staff was absolutely horrible. Could not get him back on track. Sean Payton had all the leverage in the world. Probably is getting paid quite a handsome fee that he made him offer he couldn't refuse. So Sean Payton is the new coach of the Denver Broncos. Curious to see how he can get Russell Wilson back on track. But you got to believe that he put some asterisks in his contract to say, hey, maybe I'll give this one season, but you know what? You got to give me control if Russ does not work out, and I got to take it my way. Sean Payton is in full control, and it is his show to run in Denver. All right, heading into the weekend, we have the NHL All-Star Game, which zero interest, and we're talking about from a hockey fan who, for more than 40, maybe late 30 years, loved, following the NHL, loved the All-Star Game. But at some point, I think we realize, with every game being televised, with every highlight you don't miss, you're seeing every superstar every night. The format sucks. And who wouldn't rather have games to bet on a Saturday night versus a stupid I didn't care what the current skills competition is or setup is. The NHL has to take the lead on saying gambling moves to the front of the line. All-star games are garbage. They're shit. Nobody cares. So get rid of it. And this is the 30th year of Gary Bettman as NHL commissioner. And although, I'm sure if you look down his resume, there are some positive things that he has done for 30 years. But everybody has an expiry date. And I think we're well beyond Gary Bettman's expiry date. The playoff format sucks. It's a short-term thinking that they'll cut down travel by having more divisional matchups. Most of the divisional matchups are now locked in. I know the Leafs are going to play the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I got till April to wait for that matchup. It's just so stupid and short-sighted. Also, the cap is so restrictive. There's no flexibility whatsoever, and I understand that teams that have to rely on a third string goaltender, some guy they have to sign to an emergency contract and actually has to go into play, is a reflection of the management of the cap. However, the reality is it's happening, and teams are playing shorthanded because of the cap situation, losing free agents like the Vancouver Canucks having to trade Bo Horvat to the Islanders just because the window of a contract they can actually sign him for does not match what he wants, and there is no way for them to make that decision to decide, yep, you know what, let's throw in a couple more million, because they can't. They're handcuffed. So they're going to go to the Islanders, which Horvat was traded. It's not smart thinking in the world we live in today, where the NBA and NFL, the off-season action, where the stories about guys joining teams, trades, things like that are part of the entertainment value of following these leagues. So NHL, man, once again, get your head out of your ass, because you're fucking up the sport, and it really pisses a lot of people off. UFC this weekend, UFC Fight Night. One thing to note there is that the late start time for the main card. The fight nights are usually early evening on a Saturday night. This one, the main card, with Derek Lewis as the headliner, is going to be starting at 1 a.m. despite the event taking place in Vegas at the Apex Center, the UFC place where they hold some live events, especially the live events during the pandemic. Now, as far as I can grasp, the accommodation is meant somehow there's a connection between an event that was meant to take place in South Korea and the timeline of this, because Lewis had to back out due to the illness and eventually had COVID. I'm a little fuzzy on why, but I think there's a connection between South Korea and their time zone and trying to cater to that audience. So if you're going to stay up, it's going to be a little late. 1 a.m. main card, check it out. But also worth noting for you bettors out there, sometimes the value is in the undercard. It's not necessarily the main event. And you look at the card, it's pretty large. And I hear people all the time are definitely MMA fans find value. And Dana White, if you follow Dana White, some of you may or may not do so already, he started to put some videos on some quick hits on YouTube. Quick hits on Twitter, where he's going through the card and talks a little bit about who is fighting who, but he'll focus on some noteworthy fighters that you may not know, I may not know, and kind of gives a rundown of what they can do. So it does provide some insight for something as a bettor maybe to look at, and look at if there's value, and maybe you hear a name that you read up more on in preparation for an event like a UFC Fight Night like this Saturday. So take a look at that. Also, PGA has the Pebble Beach Pro-Am going on, so have not myself dove into some golf betting yet, but I should really start prepping for the Masters in April. But we'll get to that. Life's just too short. 24 hours in a day. They're not making more time, and I'm getting older. So, I can't do it all. I wish I could, to be honest. And going forward, what other news do we have? I guess the news going forward would be that as the NFL winds down, only one game left, the focus of the podcast is going to shift to other sports. And, down the road, who knows, I might pick another sport that I have no clue about and see what we can learn about betting on the world of cricket, maybe world of rugby and things like that, or auto racing. I've never bet on NASCAR, but why not start now? But until then, started diving back into the NBA, which is an interesting situation as you're trying to catch up to kind of familiarize yourself with what's going on. I always look at every sport from afar, but trying to dig into where I'd actually place money. This week I started, actually started pretty good. I think I'm 4-0. Really focused on the Laker-Knick game that happened. It took the over of 232.5. It's just, the NBA is it's weird. The experience of betting, especially from a pro aspect, most likely folks are betting, not watching, not following, and the end result dictates if their analysis was right or wrong. But you and I are degenerates, and we kind of follow along these games as they go along, and it can be quite painful, especially if you pick one side or the other, and you really make a lot of conclusions of how things are going in the first quarter, second quarter, but it doesn't always play out that way by the end. So I mentioned I took the Knicks and Lakers a few nights ago, and just that game was up and down. First quarter, nobody could score. There was no way, that game was going to go 232 or more. It was down to I think 220 at one point in live betting for the over-under. And then the second quarter, the things start to explode. And by the fourth quarter, it took, I think, until the last 2 minutes where the Lakers didn't hit any shot they took, which it's just, it's hard to really predict, in my opinion. I'm not a pro. I'll throw that out there. How the first quarter relates to the second or the third quarter, it's tough to manage. But I can tell you this. I don't have as much of a personal this is a positive. I don't have a personal stake in a lot of the outcomes in these games, so I can look at it. Probably my best sport, I can look at it from a neutral point of view. So looking at the Lakers as an example, the Lakers are a tricky team. You gotta pay attention to who's in the lineup, because LeBron back-to-backs usually takes the night off. One of those games. So for example, he took the night off in Brooklyn. And AD, Anthony Davis, he's the real difference maker in that lineup. And Anthony Davis, as you know, Charles Barkley calls him street clothes, and it's true because he's injured all the time. And he tends to follow LeBron around. If LeBron is out of the lineup, AD's out of the lineup. They lose in Brooklyn, but they go in New York and win. And that's a huge factor when you have a lot of minutes being crunched by AD and LeBron. And if they're in the lineup, and especially if they're on the road, they tend to be a small point underdog. In most cases, with the exception of tonight against Indy, and I'll get to that. The Lakers might be a great play at the moment if those guys are all in the lineup and healthy. The fact is that we're coming late into the season. We're 50-plus games in. The Lakers are on the outside looking into the play-in game. All right, they're playing... you call it a game playing round, I guess. So I can see them revving it up, but watch out for their back-to-backs. So if that was successful for me, had an over-under with the actually live in play, Milwaukee Bucks and Charlotte Hornets. The game had started out with a ridiculous scoring in the first quarter. Keep an eye on live betting in the NBA. It can be challenging because there's constant score changing. But when you're trying to place a bet, you might get frozen out, because the odds are changing pretty quickly. However, you might get a mistake here and there. So I caught that game at 248, and the game finished 9 points less at the end of the game. So I felt I found value in live betting, which for the over-unders to me is fantastic. And, it's nothing more entertaining than picking an over and following it for a basketball game. Picking an under and following is like death. I hate cheering against, and again, this is not what a pro would do, because they don't care about cheering about anything. It's about the result, and that's what I should be looking at. But anyway, I hate following a game and hoping for missed layups, missed free throws. Minutes go by with no points. I hate myself for taking those bets, but you know what? If you want to be a pro, those are the things you got to do. So live and play is a value. So tonight, I took Lakers straight up, even though they were a 2-point favorite. 2.5, with 2.5, 2, but I can't recall. Minus 132. I took a money line over Indy. Again, AD, LeBron were in the lineup. And when you go away and kind of check after the first quarter and late in the second quarter, the Lakers are down like 13 points. They're down 13 points. I think it was 67-54. In the NBA, it's funny because even in the third quarter, they could not chip away at the lead. They're down by 12 going into the fourth quarter and wind up winning by 1 point. Right? Like, the fourth quarter surge. How do the Pacers, not keep a gap of 12 points to close out the victory? I don't understand. I'll take the money, but watching Patrick Beverley miss 2 free throws to put the Lakers' outcome at risk at the end is definitely just, you need guys to step up, and Beverly just almost choked that game away, but the Lakers do end up winning by 1. So far my foray into basketball has been successful. We'll see how that goes and continue to analyze. And just before we move on to picks going into the weekend, I don't know about your thoughts, and it's been, I think we're on the second, third year of the play-in tournament. Playing game, playing round, whatever you want to call it in the NBA. And if you guys don't know the concept here, the concept is that traditionally in the past it was, 1 to 8 teams in each conference would make the playoffs, 1 playing 8, et cetera, in each conference, and you have a winner. And the last couple of years it was changed where you still have 8 teams in each conference enter the full playoffs. But with the play-in round, you have 2 more teams with the chance of potentially making the playoffs by knocking out the lower seeded teams, the 7 and 8 teams. So how it will go is that the teams that finish 7 and 8 will play a game. The winner of that will be automatically take the 7th seed into the playoffs. The loser of that will play a second game, and they'll play the winner of the 9th and 10th seed at home. And the winner of that game will take the 8th seed. Now, when you first heard of that, I just kind of scratched my head and thinking, is this the right thing to do? Is this water down the regular season? But I don't think it does. I think what it does is when you're looking at the standings, you're looking at who is at the top, who's going to win the conference. But then you start looking down the chart, and I'm looking at the Eastern Conference right now, and I look at Miami in the 6th seed, where 3 years ago they could just coast and really have nothing to play for at some point, but they have to focus on the Knicks. The Knicks are a game behind them in the 7th spot, and if they overtake Miami, that means it moves Miami into the play-in round. And again, I don't know what the hell it's called, play-in round, play-in games, whatever the hell you want to call it. They would move Miami down. So Miami has to keep an eye and they're motivated to continue to win. The Atlanta Hawks, also 8th seed. They're a game up on the Washington Wizards, where the Wizards have the motivation to try to jump up and knock the Atlanta Hawks into the 9th seed, where they got to play and have, still in the play-in round, but a smaller percentage of actually making the full playoff series out of the playoff round. And Indiana now at the 10th seed, you're looking at Indiana and Chicago, 10-11. These teams are separated by a game. Raptors are 2 games out. And you're looking at, these guys are alive. They're alive. There's other teams in the NBA are just tanking, obviously, for the number 1 pick this year. However, you look at the West as well. The Lakers are in 13th. They are actually just suddenly waking up now. They got 2 teams to leap over, Oklahoma City and Portland. But you can see those teams fading and not getting hot, just like the Lakers could possibly get hot. But New Orleans is holding on to the 10th seed, and they're tied with Portland. Utah 9, Phoenix, not too long ago being in the championship game, championship series, and now they're in the 8th seed. Golden State is in the 7th seed. That means they'll be playing in the play-in round. I think that you'll probably see Golden State get healthier, guys in the lineup, pull away, go on a hot streak, and probably secure themselves in the top 6 and avoid the play-in round. Phoenix, I think the same way when Devin Booker comes back, but I don't know. And I do think that you'll probably see, the Dallas Mavericks, because it's Luka Doncic and pretty much nobody else, maybe dip. They had a hot streak in December, but seemed to be a little lukewarm. Luka Doncic warm. And Minnesota holds down the 6th seed, so there might be some flipping and flopping there. But I can't believe the Sacramento Kings are the third seed in the NBA's Western Conference. Joke of a franchise. Looks like they're turning things around. Sabonis picked up last year in the trade with the Indiana Pacers. I think it's solidified a lot of their young, playing in between a lot of their young stars. So Sacramento looks like their stock is on the rise. Denver leads the conference. Memphis is struggling right now. Memphis is struggling. So I don't know if that will continue, but I don't think it will. I think Memphis will wind up in the number 2 slot. But again, if for betting purposes, keep an eye on that because they are on the decline, at least in this short window of time. All right, so that's my look at the play-in round and my thoughts on that. But for NBA picks this weekend, looking at Friday, a couple plays that stand out to me. I do like the Sacramento Kings at -3 heading into Indianapolis. I'm really banking on the Pacers, really feeling that back-to-back. I know it's at home, but tough loss to the Lakers. I think the Sacramento Kings got a lot more going on for them. I think the -3, obviously, if we were playing Sacramento, that might be a -6 or 7. I see Sacramento taking it to Indianapolis or the Indiana Pacers, or if you like, maybe wait for the live and play, and if the Pacers go up, maybe hit the Sacramento Kings. And I think at the end of the day, the Kings are going to win this game, and I think they'll win by 4 or 5. Phoenix, this is the game of the night, most likely. Phoenix, the Suns heading to Boston. Boston is a 9.5-point favorite. I think that moved up to 10. It's going to probably be in 10 by tomorrow. It's 9.5 still. But Boston is scoring points of late. Phoenix is kind of struggling. I don't see any reason why the Celtics would take the foot off the gas. I think they run away with this in the fourth quarter. I take the Celtics -9.5. But maybe the play, I'm looking at it again here, and I think maybe the over 226, maybe the play here as well. Again, like I said, the Celtics are putting up points. I think the Phoenix Suns will come to play, and 226 may be the value, but let's go with Boston -9.5 and also 226 over. And last but not least, on the Friday night, Sixers take on the San Antonio Spurs. And the San Antonio Spurs are not your dad's and your grandpa's San Antonio Spurs with the Dave Robinsons, Tim Duncans, Manu Ginobili's. They're absolute trash. I don't know what their game plan is. They're now insignificant. The 76ers should roll the San Antonio Spurs. However, this comes with a caveat. This comes with an asterisk. This comes with an out clause for my bet. Joel Embiid is a game-time decision with health issues. So if he's not playing, then all bets are off. Stay away from it. Do not touch that game, especially at 10 points. All right, Saturday, I do like 2 games to kind of focus on. If AD and LeBron are playing, right now there's no spread, but if the Lakers do come in as a small favorite, to -2.5, -3, whatever it may be, into New Orleans, I would bank on the Lakers kind of going on a run right now. So that's the play there. Just don't know what the line will be, probably until tomorrow. But again, that hinges on who's playing, so please make sure you check that out. Dallas and Golden State, what a game. Luka probably here to impress. The Warriors prime time Saturday night. That I don't know the over-under at the moment. It's not put out, but I got to believe this is going to be a points fest. So I got to think 240, mid-240s, and I'd probably take it. So look at the over there, but check it out, the line, when we get to Saturday. But also, switching sports, balls are involved, of course. It's going to be EPL action, back from the week of FA Cup and League Cup action in England. So some games to look out for on Saturday. And hey, man, if you have not gotten into, after the World Cup has not motivated you, then you might as well turn the podcast off right now, because we're going to talk 5 minutes about soccer action. I could have included German action and other leagues, but I'm just going to give a few picks out of the EPL. So listen up, give it a shot, and there's money to be made here. Okay, Johnny Charts, when we bring him in, he's going to talk about the lower leagues for England and other leagues across Europe, and there's value there if you go look for it. And if you're really interested in betting, you're here to win. You're not here to, because I want to watch something on TV. I know I I'm contradicting myself because that's what I do too. But 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Arsenal takes on Everton. Everton just sacked Frank Lampard, their coach. So what effect will that have on a team trying to avoid regulation? Regulation. So if you're not aware, in European soccer, the bottom three teams at the end of the year get sent down to the lower division, while another three teams in the lower division, who are the top three teams, get put up in the next season. So there's extra motivation and financial motivation for teams to stay in the top tier league. Everton has been on the decline and would be absolutely crushed to have dropped to the championship, which is the second, the lower tier. So they'll probably have something going here. That's why they made their coaching change. But I do like this game, a same game parlay, over 1.5, over 8.5 corners. You bet 100, you'll win 89 profit. So take that to the bank. Another game, 10 o'clock, I do like, is Brentford takes on Southampton. Southampton is also looking to be relegated. Did I say regulation before? Relegated is the word I am looking for. Man, relegated. That's, proper English. Relegated, so they'll be desperate. Brentford recently hasn't scored a lot of goals, but I do see this head-to-head matchup where Southampton's got a gun for points. They got a gun for 3 points, not 1 point. They need the win, so I do think this game will be a little open. I think there's value on the over at 2.5 minus 102. So just look at that for 10 o'clock. I like that. And 12:30. Newcastle takes on West Ham. Now, Newcastle I love taking Newcastle because they get involved in games where there's tons and tons of corner kicks. So where I like this game to go with West Ham is this game to at least have 2 goals. Now, the threat here is Newcastle's kind of screwed me a couple times where, they got 55 corners, but they can't put the ball in the net, even though they're pressuring their opposition with a high-end intensity. But I do think with West Ham this weekend, we're looking at an over 1.5 and over 9.5 corner kicks, and $100 will pay you $140 profit, which tells you that I think I'm looking at value that others are not. We're going to wrap up with looking a little bit into what happened last week in the NFL, and then we'll, kind of like some of our initial thoughts going into the Super Bowl final stretch week after the Sunday. Philadelphia beat out the San Francisco 49ers 31-7. Now, the story of this game was the fact that Brock Purdy tears a UCL, can't throw the ball, he's out. Josh Johnson comes in, he gets concussed, he's out. Purdy comes back in, he can't throw the ball. So essentially the 49ers, for the majority of this game, were playing without a I'd say half game at least, were playing without a quarterback. The 49er defense hung in there as best they could. At the point of 7-7, McCaffrey broke open a couple tackles and tied the game up. But if you have no quarterback, you're dead in the water in the NFL. It's the most important position. So Philadelphia, it changed everything. I took the over in this game, and what's Philly going to do if they're doing the right thing? They gotta grind out the win. They're going to run the ball. They're going to kill the clock. They're smart. It's just smart. And the Philadelphia Eagles deservedly won the game. They could run with anybody, and they accordingly shifted their strategy to play against what their opposition had at their disposal, and that was no quarterback. So Philadelphia easily walked over San Francisco. Purdy, maybe we'll never see this guy again. I don't know. Is he going to get another shot? I don't know. I got to imagine that somebody in the NFL, if it's not the 49ers, would give him some backup time because there's such a depletion in quarterbacks. And you got to believe the 49ers could have dressed a third quarterback. But again, you're allocating a roster spot that you could, give to a linebacker or an offensive lineman. And the odds that the 2 quarterbacks go down is very low. But it did happen. So I do think the NFL has to look at making a special exemption for a third spot, a third quarterback, whether that third quarterback is in street clothes, and once one of the quarterbacks is rolled out, that quarterback then can get dressed and be available to use. And to avoid this scenario, also there's got to be some sort of amendment with the PA, the NFL PA, where multiple teams can sign multiple quarterbacks. I know there's restrictions on practice time, so they talk about reps being an issue for a new quarterback coming in. But I think you have to look at the greater good of the game. They've already done this for the safety aspect of really protecting the quarterback to limit the number of quarterbacks that go down with injury. And that makes sense. It's just a game is absolutely horrible when you have a high-end quarterback in for somebody who is, signed off the practice squad a week earlier. It makes a difference to the entertainment value of the game. The NFL is not poor. They can afford to accommodate one or two more quarterbacks, develop these quarterbacks so that there's a larger pool where teams' seasons are not gutted and just destroyed when their quarterback goes down, because there is a depth problem in the NFL today. So bye-bye San Francisco, Philadelphia. You're on the road to the Super Bowl. Congratulations. The other game that we witnessed, which came down to the wire and almost played out our, go to overtime to plus 1,300, I think it was, or plus 1,250, but it didn't happen because Joseph Osei with maybe the bonehead move of the season with the 15-yard penalty on Patrick Mahomes. I don't care what anybody says. Every game that's a penalty. I don't know how teams that have players that don't, their job is their entire existence, just like our old regular jobs, is to know your job inside and out. And I know it's a spur of the moment, but these scenarios have happened week over week, year over year, and how you hit him out of bounds that late to push up that field goal to essentially make it a gimme field goal, not go to overtime. I don't know how you do it. Well, you leave it at that. I'm pretty sure fans have gone well beyond stupidity, voicing their displeasure with the Cincinnati Bengal defender. And you got to kind of take it for what it is. Just it was a play, it was a bonehead play. You move on. I'm sure he'll be back next year. But that game I had Chiefs on a lot of plays. But I also decided at the end there, I thought, let me do an alternative Cincinnati spread, because I don't think Cincinnati's going to win, but I think that they'll, 7.5 points. I think we're fine there. And I put it with an over of 40 points in the game. Also, that Burrows would throw for 225 yards, which that Jamar Chase fourth down catch, tremendous catch, really saved my bacon on that one. And speaking of Jamar Chase, I thought the Chiefs did a good job of really limiting, despite that catch, but I had him having 6 receptions or more. He went up with 5, and that's unlike Jamar Chase. And he had a lot of short passes right off the snap, but Casey did a good job of limiting him. I think that was a big factor as well. Travis Kelce came in with a bad back, but we had him as an anytime touchdown score, and that happened. So that was a plus 100, which is great. So it was a little up and down. KC was the right play. You had the bet on Mahomes if the ankle was somewhat mobile or not, and proved at the end he could make something happen if he had to. So it was the Cincinnati play. The Kansas City play in that game was the right play, and we're glad we made it. But some of the props in there didn't go our way. Well, that's life. I'm looking forward to Super Bowl 57. Kansas City right now is a 1.5 point dog to the Eagles. Eagles are favorite. I got to believe that is going to flip-flop based on cameras looking at Mahomes' ankle. And the over-under of 50.5 also might take a significant movement if people are thinking of this might be a track meet out there. I tend to wait until 24 hours before the game. Let's not kid ourselves. This is 24 seconds before the game sometimes to really land on where I want to go and take my wagers. The pros might do it midweek when the line is there that they like. So again, you're going to see some of your books have different spreads. So keep an eye on those different sports books in your state or province. Don't just keep an eye on yours. That might give you some telltale signs of maybe what you want to make. But some preliminary thoughts heading in to the final week leading up to the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not locking these in. These are not finalized bets, but something that stands out to me. So I got about 7 bets here that I'm pondering, and it will grow for sure. Mahomes passing touchdowns over a 1.5. Right now it's sitting at minus 230. I put it out there meaning that I do like it, but most likely because it's minus 230, I got to parlay it with something else. I don't know what that will be yet. Jalen Hurts over 289.5 passing and rushing at minus 114. I got to think that obviously this is the last game of the season. Jalen Hurts, he's going to be probably more likely to take off because of the pressure and you got to look at the clock and probably think that those seconds are ticking by way fast if you're behind versus any other game you've played. So I like the idea that he's going to take off more, and he'll have a couple deep passes as well. So 289.5 pass rush, I like it. Mahomes over 38.5 yards longest pass. He's going to go downfield. He's got 40 yards, like 39 or more yards. Definitely doable. Okay, minus 106. Also, Jalen Hurts, back to Hurts, longest rush over 12.5 yards. You tell me at minus 122, 12.5 yards, that he's not going to take off for a 15, 20-yard gain at some point in this game? Come on. I think that's a gimme right there. Devontae Smith, who did not get the ball against the 49ers, but again, dictated by the need of the Eagles to keep the clock going and running the ball. And so I think this is going to go back to Devontae Smith, at least having 6 catches or more. And that's minus 102, so that's looking pretty tasty right now. And another little tasty tidbit here is because the Kansas City Chiefs are the underdog, you look at the race to whatever score. And right now, FanDuel, I believe, is unique to this. They have a race to 5, and they have Kansas City at minus 108. Like, come on. Kansas City wins the flip. They lose the flip, they get the ball. You tell me they can't score a touchdown right off the bat? Of course they can. So minus 108 for Kansas City, race to 5. I like it. And just some things to think about as you're prepping for your Super Bowl experience. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, you most likely have a party you're hosting, you're heading to, but some key things you need to know. One is that by the way, halftime is going to be longer than normal because of the Rihanna halftime show. So it's not going to be the quick 15-minute turnaround that you may have thought it is. But some things you need to know if you're hosting a party. Finger foods are where it is at. You need to get wings, frozen foods where you pop in the oven, get them, people are grabbing them, chips. You're not looking for lasagna or pot roast. It's all finger foods. That's what people want. Keep it simple. I'll even recommend if you got buddies coming over, families coming over, family friends coming over. Sometimes it's a family event. It's not all just sports degenerate gamblers coming to your home. Throw out a potluck, but prep. Just ask people if they want to bring something. But that's got to be a week in advance, and that way you don't have to worry about popping stuff in the oven. You just got to worry about space to allow people to bring their stuff. And yeah, I think you'll be happy with making that choice as well. But also, more importantly here, really set the expectations right off the bat of what your plan is for them to get home. You're the host of the party. You don't want anybody to get injured or hurt when they're trying to get home. Set the expectation that Uber, designated drivers, things like that are taken care of and planned out well ahead of time before people show up at the door, and you're trying to ask those questions as the party's growing in numbers. Not a good plan. Do it ahead of time. You'll thank me for it. It's the right play to do. Same thing for safety when it comes to heading out to a bar. Make sure that you're calling ahead, probably Monday at the latest to book some spaces, especially if you got a group of 7, 8 to 10 people. These bars fill up fast. COVID's done, guys. You know what I mean. COVID's not done, but it's done as far as people are going out now to the bars. So if you're planning to do so, plan ahead, book the space. If you head to a bar, I can't stress enough, have your tab strategy ready to go. You're going to be asked that question as the server comes up and says, is it going to be on one tab or separate tabs? And what's going to happen is you're going to probably make that gut choice because you want to be a hero that let's just share the tab. Well, by the fourth quarter, you're wondering, okay, who ordered what on this tab? What, are there multiple tabs going? Like, what's going on? So if you're into that, just set that expectation right off the bat. But if you really want to keep it simple, keep your own tab. That way, everything you order is on you. If you want to order a drink for somebody, you specifically call it out to the server, because right now it's going to be chaos. You might be a little tipsy, and I'd recommend strategizing what your bill strategy is going to be well ahead of time with your buddies. And be safe. We're talking about going into public. Don't talk trash. Have good fun. Laugh, humor. You're not looking to get in a brawl. It's a football game. Guys, we got to go to work the next day, possibly. So keep that in mind. We've got kids now. There's no need to go all nuts and make it more than it has to be. Have a safe, get the group of people that you're going to be looking for your best interest. You might pass out, and you might have to have somebody there that's waking you up and getting you into an Uber and getting you home. And just make sure you have that plan home as well, whether it be ride sharing or mapping out, bus, train schedules to make sure you're safely at home. And then log into the Overrated Experience podcast later in the week to find out how well I did, and to find out, some other plays moving after the football season. Well, that being said, we're really heading to what I believe is the end of the official sports betting season. That is the Super Bowl. That doesn't mean it stops. That means it just launches again with baseball action and heading into the playoffs with basketball and hockey and soccer action. So until we get back to football season again, which is the main event. So I'll leave it at that. The pleasure's all been yours. And we're going to say over and out. Have a great weekend. And it's Super Bowl time, baby. Bye-bye.